Sal, Sarena, welcome back to another episode. I'm delighted to have both of you with us today. There's so much that's been going on in the Eric Adams case, but also in other cases dealing with corruption in the NYPD. Sarena, thanks for joining us again. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
It's wonderful to have you always. And I want to make sure that people know that Sarena is joining us. She is an attorney, and she is a former give us the background, Sarena. You've worked in internal affairs. You worked at Rikers Island. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was a prosecutor at the Brooklyn DA's office for a decade. After that, I was the deputy commissioner over at New York City Department of Correction, overseeing the investigation division and the trials division, which means I was in charge of internal affairs on Rikers Island and staff discipline. Now I'm in private practice. I am a private attorney. I have my own law firm called Townsend Law. And yeah, I hang out with you guys and talk crap all the time. That's my second job.
We love it. We love it. And people who have need for a lawyer should check out TownsendLawNYC.com. Of course, we're also joined by Sal Greco. Sal, welcome back to the show. Always a pleasure to have you. You've been breaking this story wide open for months. There's a lot to discuss. And before we get underway, though, I need to apologize, Sal, because you and I did a show about Lieutenant Epps a couple weeks ago, and I don't think I understood the details, and I titled it in a way that was insensitive to her situation. Can you give us a little bit of background on exactly what has happened and the latest developments that you guys were discussing on your show that people can tune into when they join you at the Sal Greco on X and everywhere else? Just fill us in for people who haven't been following.
So I gave a little bit of background on this. So Lieutenant Epps was a lieutenant in the New York City Police Department, and she worked in the Cheif of Department's office, which was the head of that obviously was the chief, which was Jeffrey Maddrey. And she alleged a lot of things that happened there because there was a hit piece put out on her, which is what we kind of went off of, you and I, in a prior episode where we discussed Epps and the fact that she was on the top earners list as far as overtime goes. So this narrative has been put out from the beginning. That is that Lieutenant Epps stole overtime and she's a thief, and she used, she was sexting her way up, so to speak, to get her way, which is far from the case. That is not the case here. And we just go over the history of a Jeffrey Maddrey, who is a monster. I mean, he's done what is being alleged here to other victims. You can look back, actually, someone who watches my own show and the Finest Unfiltered, Tabitha Foster, had the same allegations with Jeffrey Maddrey, where he would bully her, he forced her, he coerced her and forced her into things that she didn't want to do. But of course, people came out back then and defending him. And just to make it well known, there's videos or pictures that have been leaked out in regards to this case, where the only person that could have had this is Jeffrey Maddrey. And obviously, as her attorney, Eric Sanders, will be on my show tomorrow at 12:05 p.m. Eastern to discuss this in greater detail. But her attorney actually admitted a fact that from December 22nd on, Lieutenant Epps has not had her phone, okay, which means what? We came to learn through my own case, through a filing from Eric Sanders. I'm not going to lie, he's my attorney also. I have my own case against the NYPD in New York City, that the FBI has been involved in this case, which is why you're hearing a stonewall. We don't really hear about anything going on evidence-wise other than what's already out there public. And what do we know? They raided Jeffrey Maddrey's house. I could tell you through some sources. They went through his brother's home. They went and found there's some kind of videos or pictures that were seized from Jeffrey Maddrey's own home. And I mean, this is all alleged, but this is what the sources are telling me. So, and there's a lot of other things going on, but the fact that there's this video floating around the very day that this woman was going on ABC to tell her story, this is the tactic that comes from the so-called Dream Team, or another word from the Consofrito crew, which is all these clowns, Maddrey, Eric Adams, John Shell, Kaz Dawdry, the Caban brothers, all these people that were in the upper echelon of police department and in the administration, Tim Pearson, Philip Banks, this is their tactic. They've been doing this for many years. In fact, Sarena would know even more because she had to deal with Tim Pearson personally, and she knows what Eric Adams is fully capable of and his goons. So I don't know if Sarena wants to get into the fact of the video, which goes against the law, and people are disseminating this video, and now cops are involved, and they're going to be probably prosecuted for this as well. So,
yeah, there's essentially Lieutenant Epps is alleging that Jeffrey Maddrey sexually assaulted her. That's what it comes down to. A lot of people have been trying to tarnish Lieutenant Epps' name over this. It does feel like Sal was clearly saying that the bully squad is kind of stoking those flames to try to get Jeff Maddrey out of this trouble. But what happened recently is that a video of Miss Epps started circulating yesterday before her appearance on the nightly news. And that video, you know, they expected to taint her credibility because it's a video allegedly of her. She's not fully dressed, and she's apparently sending this message to Jeffrey Maddrey. As Sal said, it does not appear like that could have come from anyone else's phone but Jeffrey Maddrey's phone himself. So did he purposely leak this around? That video is circulating in a WhatsApp chat that is kind of filled with other police officers. And the problem with that is you can't disseminate pornographic materials via cell phone or any other electronic communications, or you can be charged with a felony. In fact, you could be charged with a federal crime if they really had the appetite to charge you for that. It is potentially could be classified as revenge porn. It could be classified just strictly as pornographic material. And certainly it's just a horrible thing to do to try to do to a woman who is brave enough to come out and make these allegations against somebody who is extremely powerful and has basically gotten away with misconduct throughout his entire career. So that's the status of things right now. It feels like it's developing rapidly. So I'm sure there's going to be more even just after today's episode.
Yeah. And for people who haven't seen this ABC interview, you know, again, if Lieutenant Epps saw that first episode, I misunderstood the headlines. I thought she was involved in stealing this overtime, but she gives very compelling testimony. I mean, to see a grown woman like this, who was a police lieutenant, brought to tears, recounting the humiliation that she was subjected to, it really, I mean, you know, look, I'm not saying this is ever acceptable, but when it's some idiot in college or some stupid boyfriend, it's one thing. This guy's the chief of police and he's acting like an insane criminal. It was mind-blowing.
Jason, I'm also going to point this out. You got to have to understand that he is a well-received person in the community. He's been in the NYPD for over 30 years. As the chief of department, he would have communications and relationships with all 5 district attorneys. He's also a member of the bar. He possibly could know the people that are in charge of the New York State Bar. He does rub elbows with people like Letitia James because he was hanging out at Cone. So frito with her, and all the politicians that are in New York State were there. So he is very much a person that is, short of a murder, is virtually untouchable.
So wait a minute, Sal. Wait. Are you telling us that he has the ability to influence some of these people and maybe determine who gets prosecuted, who doesn't get prosecuted?
Correct. One phone call from this man could either make or break a case or start an investigation. He also knows the people from the Department of Investigations. As the chief of department, he would have a line to that. He hangs out with all the people in Eric Adams' administration. The fact that he's hanging out with the attorney general, he knows everyone. And then we have the last part of this. So people say, oh, but she's a cop and she has a gun. She's one woman that works in this office, okay, that's up there. You don't know what's going on when she's there late at night. You now learned last night that he also devised a scheme where he told her, give me money and give it to my wife. You don't know if the wife is involved in this scheme.
Yeah.
So there's almost like an extortion, kind of like what we've been hearing from the Eric Adams camp. And the last point I'll make here is that the other guy that nobody, it's like the media refuses to talk about, this Jimmy Rodriguez guy, who ran Canto Frito as the manager and owned Jimmy's Bronx Cafe. He's a mob associate and a self-admitted criminal. Nobody is being, held to task for associating with him. If you're a cop, he is hanging around guys like Fat Joe and Peter Guns. These guys have been in a gang or in a gang. They have a really bad history. So does Jimmy Rodriguez. Who's to say he doesn't say, well, she's getting out of line, and we call someone like him who knows other people. We now know about a nightclub extortion racket that these people's names keep getting thrown around in. Who's to say he doesn't, he's obviously playing a double-edged sword. He wants to play cop on one end. On the other end, he's now a gangster, Jeffrey Maddrey. So who's to say they don't try to threaten her from behind the scenes using street guys, street-level thugs? He's hanging around them, hanging around these nightclubs together. So that's the whole point. Everyone's missing the point and just rushing to, she stole overtime and she's a slut because there's no evidence of this. All they have is, oh, well, there's a video. The video was something that was, from her angle, was coerced to give. I didn't watch this thing or see these pictures or videos, but something that's private that's sent to one person, it's revenge porn, like Sarena said. And the officers that are doing this, that keep disseminating this, Jason, there's a culture in the New York State Police Department. They love sensationalizing things, and they all in these WhatsApp chats. And I'm telling you, I've been saying this for years from when I was on the job. I wasn't in these things. I said, one day you're all going to get indicted for something stupid.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Why? There's no.
So I see them on the phone all the time. Wherever I go around New York City, there is no situational awareness. The police are staring at the phone. Are they sharing nude pictures of female officers who they're in the process of extorting? I was on the subway just yesterday, and I mean, we know how dangerous the subway is. Now, Kathy Hochul has put officers on the subway. We got one woman there, looks about the age of my grandmother, and then this guy's looking at his WhatsApp chats.
These WhatsApp chats are pervasive within the law enforcement community. I used to see it when I was investigating staff misconduct at DOC. All of the time, they're on their WhatsApp chat groups, they're sharing information, they're leaking documents, they're talking all sorts of things. And, it is true. It only takes one leak of that leak to get people into trouble, to get people investigated. And, those officers who are in that WhatsApp chat with this leaked video of her, they got to be careful, because if they themselves are disseminating those images, they could be looking down the barrel of criminal charges.
But even beyond that, Sarena, sorry, Sal, 1 second. Beyond the criminal charges, Sal, you tell me, you've been in this kind of scenario. Isn't it true, if somebody on this train is taking out a weapon and you have 1 second that you're looking down at the phone instead of the moment that thing comes out, aren't you at a disadvantage? Couldn't this cost your life, your partner's life, the people on the train's life? Shouldn't there be no looking at the cell phone when cops are on duty?
Yeah, I mean, it's situational awareness. You have to be aware of your surroundings at all times. And, being on a train like that, unless it's the NYPD, they love calling people. And so if one of you is looking at the phone and your partner is in front of you, making sure nothing, being aware, that's one thing. But I don't know how long. He could have been on that phone for a long time.
The whole time.
What he's doing. That is
no one's calling him underground.
Yeah, that's
right.
That is not a good thing.
That's Candy Crush, my friend.
Sudoku, right? Exactly.
I wanted to say this because you mentioned a WhatsApp chat. Now, I want to make you aware, Jason, that in these chats, everyone from as high up as a deputy commissioner to commissioner has been in these chats. So that's chiefs. These are supervisors that immediately should be notifying not only internal affairs, but taking themselves out of it and not having anything to do with it. So you're looking at something that could discipline people from the top down or indict people from the top down, because nobody is stopping this stuff. I mean, it's been going on for a long time. People want to take pot shots at Lieutenant Epps. And I'm just trying to be fair here, Jason. I'm not picking a side, but I'm going to tell you what. It wasn't too long ago when it was the same group of people in the New York State Police Department that was smearing my name. They were calling me an insurrectionist and a traitor to this country. Jason, I was never at the Capitol. I was not involved in any actions that took place 4 years ago on January 6th. I wasn't even there. I was in a hotel room watching everything on TV in total despair. But the NYPD continued to smear me via the media. They never said I did anything publicly. but that's not what they insinuated through the media. So I was smeared, and there was no one coming in my defense other than a few people. And now we have this right now with Epps. It's the same people doing the same thing. So they want to basically insinuate that she stole overtime, even though that is not the case. And they want to insinuate that she's a whore because they are letting out these videos. And that's not the case either. And people really need to stop being low information and do research and look at the facts and the evidence, because that's the problem in this country, whether it's Epps, Maddrey, Eric Adams, President Trump, the MAGA movement, the Democrat Party. Nobody looks at facts or evidence. They listen to people like Brian Kilmeade, a propagandist who's paid to do that. And there it is. Oh, that's it. Just run with that narrative. It's really sad, Jason.
You're right, it is. And you know, what's interesting, Sal, is that it's turning out that exactly what you had anticipated is what Lieutenant Epps testified to, that she was basically forced to take this money. And the new piece was that Maddrey said, send it to my wife as a gift. Who's giving somebody else's wife a $3,000 gift? I mean, maybe Donald Trump, but not salary people working for the cops or a regular job. You don't give out $3,000. I mean, maybe to her own kid but even that is a huge sum of money. The thing I wanted to ask about, because I didn't know about this until now, the videos being distributed and all that, it kind of smacks of like Diddy kind of stuff, you know, sharing these sex videos. And then we had separately, there's another Diddy lawsuit that's come out. We've got Ashley Parham versus Sean Combs, where it's now been alleged in tremendous detail that this guy, John Pelletier, who used to be on the Las Vegas Metro PD when they had the shooting in 2017, and now is the chief of police in Maui, he's not just linked. He is accused in great detail. They've provided addresses where this guy held the plaintiff hostage, disguised himself as a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy to answer a gang rape call. But he was with the Las Vegas police at the time that he was doing this. So he took the plaintiff allegedly to his house or a safe house. The plaintiff provides the address. These are outrageous, scandalous claims. I mean, if any of this is true, I mean, the other thing I wanted to touch on, and then I'll hand it off, because when you're saying, like, look, the woman has a gun, she's a cop, you guys obviously have a lot of confidence as police officers, even when somebody like Jimmy Rodriguez tries to threaten you. But would you realize that the internal structure of the police is compromised? That's got to scare even the toughest cop.
I'll tell you what, Jason, Jimmy Rodriguez actually did threaten John McCarry online. So there is a history of this also, just to give you, and I'm not saying he did threaten anyone. I'm just saying that that's in his history. And, you know, the people that hang around that place, you would assume have done this kind of stuff in the past. So I'm just giving you an example of the people Jeffrey Maddrey hang around and could possibly get involved in this behind the scenes. But so you're mentioning this whole thing with P. Diddy. And before Serena touches up, as I didn't mention this on my own show, but I mentioned it on a different show. People are screaming about Jeffrey Epstein, a guy that's been dead for 6 years. So his files that allegedly have been released, not been released by the Attorney General with this whole, you know, they messed that all up. They were going to release this. The bottom line with that is the man's dead 6 years, okay? On top of it, the files that you think that may be accessed might be what you saw, flight logs. There were DVDs and videos taken from his estate, yet we don't know what's on that. But they did charge and convict his cohort, Ghislaine Maxwell, who, by the way, is appealing that case with everyone's favorite attorney, Artie Idala, who seems to be Eric Adams' friend. He was Steve Bannon's lawyer. He's Ingrid Lewis-Martin's lawyer. I mean, the guy's always involved in a little circle, as we see. And that case you could ask Serena, it's quasi-active because of that appeal. I don't know how much of this stuff you can see. But I mentioned P. Diddy is far, far worse, an active case. And in his own case, which I believe he is more than likely guilty of the crimes he committed against certain victims, all the victims that are saying they have evidence and they charge him with. But they're saying it's a RICO case, Jason, and there's been no co-conspirators that we've learned of. Up until 24 hours after I mentioned this, and I said, low information people need to get off the Epstein thing just for a minute and pay attention to P. Diddy. Boom. Now you hear about some co-conspirator is a sheriff. Because I said his case is a RICO case with no co-conspirators. Why? And now you're starting to hear about co-conspirators. So
Yeah.
that's much more important to America, Jason. I'm sure Sarena could touch up on it, but I'm glad to see that now you're starting to hear something, because you can't just say he is being charged in a RICO case and he's the only person charged. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I mean, RICO is for criminal enterprise. So where's the enterprise, right? Like, we know Eric Adams is enterprise, right?
Yeah.
But that case, we don't have to talk about that case, which is going to go away. But yeah, these allegations are huge. And it does feel like, despite the fact that we've heard from a lot of accusers, we hadn't heard about other co-conspirators until now. And I do wonder if there are more lurking in the shadows that we're going to hear more about as this thing unfolds. Because again, the more co-conspirators they start to bring out and target, the more people are going to flip. They're going to point their finger. They're going to give evidence in order to benefit their own sentence or their own conviction or lack thereof. So all of those things, all of the targets that they're going to be bringing out, we're going to find more and more information from them.
And also, we have to say this, Jason, the co-conspirators, exactly who they are they covering up because they are politicians? They are Democrat donors, Republican donors? Are they police officers? Are they federal agents? Are they prosecutors? Clearly, there's a reason why he's in a RICO case by himself with no co-conspirators. I've never heard of this. This has been used on mobsters. They try to say, now they're trying to mention this with Eric Adams, but yet we never hear about co-conspirators with P. Diddy, but very much clearly, look, read his indictment. It's a RICO case. So that's what I'm trying to point. America should be asking these questions, but they're fixated on a guy who's been dead for 6 years. And his list cannot be as grandioso as this guy who's been active far longer, since the 90s. And he's involved with just about everybody, including a Jimmy Rodriguez. So I'm just telling you, this is more scandalous, salacious, and active and more factual and more evidence than
more relevant to everything that's going on. Absolutely. I totally agree.
Just doing this. Jeffrey Epstein. What about this? What about that? Again, low information, focused on the wrong things. I can only say this so many times. I'm, sounding the alarm. Sarena, myself, John, Eric, Marlon Bethel of the Finest and Filth. But there's only so much we could do, Jason.
You're absolutely right, Sal. And I agree with everything you said, with one exception. I do not see any evidence that Epstein is actually dead. The photograph of the guy on the gurney that was published on the front page of the New York Post, the profile is dramatically different than Epstein. I think he was secretly exfiltrated from that prison. And that's why the cameras were off. That's why Bill Barr never investigated. But that's a separate debate for a separate show. Additionally, the thing that's really unique about the Diddy case is that you're right. In the federal indictment, he's like the first ever solo RICO. But if you start mining these multiple civil lawsuits against him, there's a litany of co-conspirators, from Cuba Gooding Jr. to various record executives and all kinds of stuff. So now, and by the way, LAPD have been implicated in some of the civil lawsuits. There was a guy named Mr. G. That's the only name that we know for this guy, who was shot in the bathroom, either by Diddy or his son. And the police came. They literally dragged the kid out to the parking lot, threw him in the parking lot. Police saw the blood. There's pictures of the bathroom. I mean, it looks like somebody was killed in there. And the LAPD said, the guy got shot in the parking lot, and let Diddy off. But let me just switch you guys to Eric Adams, because that plays into all of this as well. And, Sal, before we got on the call, Sarena and I just had a little chance to catch up, and she was telling me that she had not yet seen this order from Judge Dale Ho. This was just issued yesterday, and basically what he's saying in this order, you're going to remember that we had the retired or resigned prosecutors who had moved, or this guy, Nathaniel Ackerman, had moved to be this amicus prosecutor, sort of a new invention that goes well beyond an amicus curiae. And the judge didn't do that. The judge separately appointed an amicus prosecutor, which before the prosecution of Michael Flynn, this was like completely, nobody's ever done that before. But now they actually cited that case law. They used that citation, sort of legitimizing their own crap. Now, the other part of this that I wanted to read to everybody, He's saying before the court are several motions requesting leave to file amicus briefs, and the deadline for objection was the 5th. The court received no objections, so they're allowing all these people to file, including Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Those motions are granted. The parties raised objection to the motion for leave by the former United States attorneys, but this, he says, is moot because he's already assigned our buddy Clement. And then he said that there have been several voluminous pro se filings. He could be talking about just me, but there could be others as well. But I have filed to appear as an amicus curiae in this case, and I have an extensive amicus filing that this is truly astounding because you may notice, Sarena, nowhere on the docket do we see a motion seeking leave to file as an amicus curiae by Jason Goodman that has been denied. We don't see that the judge said, hey, Jason filled this thing up with scurrilous material that's false and scandalous, so I'm striking it. I've actually spoken to the clerks several times this week about exactly WTF is going on with this filing because they told me that they gave it to Chambers and were instructed not to enter it on the docket. And I'm not an attorney. Everybody knows that. But it's currently my position that that is a violation of my First Amendment rights, my Fifth Amendment rights, and my 14th Amendment rights, because the judge does have judicial discretion to say, I don't like Jewy little guys named Jason, so I'm denying this motion. I don't want any amicus filings from any pro ses, so I'm denying this motion. This amicus filing deals with stuff outside the context of this case, so I'm denying this motion. Any number of reasons Judge Dale Ho could have given to deny my motion, to strike my motion, or whatever. But what he does not have the judicial authority to do is to essentially stand outside the court and obstruct me from entering and exercising my First Amendment right to seek redress through the courts. Am I wrong on this, Sarena?
I am a criminal defense attorney. I am not a First Amendment attorney. However, I do know that, even when I have filed an amicus brief, I needed permission to do so. A judge is not always going to accept it because
seeking leave. Yes, they could deny the leave.
Right. You have to prove that you have information that's going to be relevant and that you yourself are an expert in certain things that would lend you credibility so that a judge would listen to you. You're kind of springing me on this, Jason. I don't know. I haven't seen any of the filings that you've done, so I can't give you legal advice.
And let me apologize. I don't mean to be. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm not asking for legal advice. I didn't mean to. Forgive me. I didn't mean to put it that way.
No. It's fine. I'm just saying I don't know. I also don't know the facts and circumstances behind what he received. If he did receive a voluminous amount that rendered him incapable of reading all of it, it may not have just been yours. It could be other people. I do not know, and neither do you, frankly. Right? I mean, let's be objective here. I know.
Well, hang on though. Look at this. He says, leave, because again, I acknowledge everything you're saying. I didn't just file the amicus brief. I filed a motion seeking leave. And he could have denied that leave, and that would have been the appropriate way to do it, I think. He says there have been several. He's saying that here, but he's not saying it to me, and he's not addressing my motion. We don't know if he has mine or not. He's just saying leave is denied for these pro se parties, doesn't even name the parties, and he says they will not be considered and will not be placed on the docket, but will be maintained in a Chambers file. So what is this black box back room? This guy's inventing new procedures for how my filings are handled. That's not allowed to be done. He's a judge. He's got to follow the law. He's got to follow the rules. This is the kind of crap that judges are doing all the time.
Jason, I don't know. He may have the right to do this. I don't know.
I'm amazed this is still going. I thought this was, these guys, these prosecutors. I could only say this, and we've discussed this on my own show with Sarena. It's funny because the defense that they're using here for Eric Adams seems to be what he did to Luigi Mangione, including his own police commissioner and his chief of detectives. And I think Luigi Mangione's case will end up like O.J. Simpson in an acquittal if it goes forward. But it should be a jury nullification because these idiots can't get their face and head away from being in front of cameras and the media, and they're self-impressed people. It's what brought them all down to begin with. Now, even the police commissioner, Jessica Tish, who is part of a massive cover-up in the NYPD with the entire Jeffrey Maddrey Epps scandal. So, I don't know what else to say. I mean, Eric Adams is a hypocrite, but if you're going to dismiss his case, you need to dismiss Luigi Mangione's case. They taped it.
Absolutely.
Serena can point it out for you.
Was it you guys, Serena, was it you guys who brought up the point that the police commissioner sent some text that said Luigi Mangione was hot or something like that?
Yeah, so there was an article in New York Magazine just the other day that profiled Jessica Tish, and part of what they discussed was her handling of the Luigi Mangione case. And I guess they did an interview of Jess Tish herself for this article, and for whatever reason, she gave information, or somebody who she spoke to gave information to New York Magazine about the way that they were handling the pursuit of Luigi. And they had to essentially go from business to business to collect surveillance video from those businesses to try to track the perpetrator's movements after he shot the CEO. And she was apparently looking through those surveillance videos with disdain and despondently because she could not be sure that this was him, which already, by the way, you have the police commissioner making public statements that she cannot be sure that the perp is the actual person who they arrested. That's a huge problem. But then it makes it so much worse than that, because why isn't she sure that it's him? Is it because, the person has blonde hair instead of brown? Is it because the person was wearing red instead of black? Is it because the person was 5'9" instead of 5'2"? No, it's because she didn't think that the person that they collected the video of was hot enough to be Luigi Mangione. He wasn't chiseled enough, more specifically, and his eyebrows weren't wild enough. Literally, this is what she said to the news. Like, I really cannot believe how kind of casually she's speaking about an open case, the most important case I think that's going on in all of America right now, of which she is in charge of, to just be loosey-goosey with her words like that to the press, making a dent in the strength of the prosecution's case before trial. I mean, to me, that is the height of irresponsibility. I was shocked to read it. And it's a big problem. And yeah, just like Sal said, we've discussed this on his show. The reasons for dismissing Eric Adams's case was ridiculous and can be applied to so many other people's cases, including Luigi's case, where Eric Adams himself made public statements, incriminating public statements about Luigi before he got to trial, and is turning around, kicking his feet, screaming up and down that it's unfair that Damian Williams did exactly that to him.
Isn't it also true, Serena, that if they allow Eric Adams' case to be dismissed on the arguments that have already been presented, they're going to have created a legal precedent for anyone, whoever holds the office of mayor of the city of New York, to do whatever they want, and then when they get indicted to say, oh, I can't come under indictment because I'm losing my security clearance and I can't do my job as mayor. Isn't that the point of getting arrested? They stick you in jail and you can't do your job until it all gets resolved.
All of a sudden, we care about the people who we arrest and their ability to do their jobs. No, we only care about it when it's beneficial to us. And so, when Emil Bove, acting, as Trump's counsel, decided this, it's because it was helpful to Trump. It's not because of anything on the merits. And as everybody here should know, and probably does know, the law is simply a regurgitation of previous precedent, right? Like what you set as new law follows you for the rest of eternity. We've seen it happen, good and bad, in case law. And when you do something like this and you put on the record that these are acceptable reasons for dismissing a case, and you specifically say it has nothing to do with the strength of the evidence, we're not even making a judgment call with respect to whether he's guilty or not guilty. In fact, what we care about is whether he could do his job and whether prejudicial statements were made about him pre-trial. Those were the only two reasons that were cited to dismiss this case. And when you do that, you're setting horrific precedent, because God knows I'm going to use that for my clients, and every defense attorney should use that for their clients coming up.
But when you're the mayor and you go on TV every day, can't you just make any kind of prejudicial statement about anybody that you don't want going? I mean, this is so stupid on its face. And one other question about something you just said.
It's hypocritical. It's stupid, but it's also hypocritical coming from him.
But one question about a point that you just made. You said that Emil Bove did this. Emil Bove, let's call him by his proper name.
Is that how to say it?
No, Sal calls him Email, and I think it's great because he's a dope.
Oh, I love it.
Emil Bove. But because Mr. Bove, I believe Bove is the correct way to say his last name, but you said that he did this because it helped Trump. Are we sure that's the reason that he did it? Because it doesn't seem like in the long term this is going to help Trump. And they're basically couching this in the premise that Eric Adams, you guys went into great detail about this, that Eric Adams can't help Trump violate city ordinances or New York State laws, even if he wants to. But yet at the same time, he can't actively violate federal law, can he?
So, first of all, you're assuming that Emil Bove gives a shit about the law. And you're right. It can't help Trump now because it looks like Judge Ho is going to dismiss this case with prejudice, which means that it cannot be resurrected. However, the game plan from Emil Bove was to dismiss the case without prejudice, which essentially dangles a carrot over Eric Adams and essentially creates this situation of pressure and blackmail over Eric Adams. To take the opposite argument, what you're proposing, Jason, is that he didn't do it to help Trump. Then why did he do it? Literally, there's no Emil Bove
to
doesn't
jam
know
Trump
Eric
up.
Adams.
No, I think he did it because he's a double-cross agent there to jam up Trump, just like Michael Flynn was in Trump 1.0. A lot of people don't realize this, but Michael Flynn is a double-cross agent in my estimation. That's why he hired Covington and Burling. I mean, Serena, you know a lot about this, okay? If somebody like Sal or somebody like me, or let's say even a retired general who was worth, let's say, $4 million, $2, $3, $5 million, something like that. He owns a home, but he's not, he's not Donald Trump. He's not Elon Musk. He's not a major corporation. Is Covington and Burling representing a client like that, particularly when he's a pro-Trump guy and that's Eric Holder's law firm? That made no sense. That only makes sense to me if Covington and Burling is managing this lawfare assault on Trump. Because there's another detail about the Flynn case that a lot of people don't know. On this show, we brought up the fact that, hey, wait a minute, why is Flynn using Covington and Burling? And then when we brought that to Joseph Flynn's attention, it coincided with Flynn switching to Sidney Powell. Perhaps to hide the fact that people had realized that he's using this Democrat establishment law firm that's as close to Obama as you can possibly be. So I think they've taken the same script, and in tonight's performance, the role of Lieutenant Flynn will be played by Eric Adams. And the goal is to just jam this mess up into such a knot that all it does is make Trump look terrible. How could Bove not know that this is the most idiotic legal theory that he could possibly advance that is absolutely going to look like a sword of Damocles over Eric Adams and something that you simply cannot do? And by the way, they're trying to make a deal with him to do something that Tom Homan already said. They could just sit an ICE vehicle outside of Rikers Island and arrest people when they leave. Why do they even need this deal with Eric Adams?
Well, honestly, you've done a lot just then. And my experience with these kinds of people is you are giving them way too much credit. When I see this, I see the height of incompetence and laziness. I don't see the conspiracy theory that you're weaving together. I think that Emil Bove thought that this was going to help Trump. I simply do. I don't think that I don't have any evidence. I mean, you want to say that there's evidence that he's a double agent. What is the evidence there? Like, we would rather believe he's a double agent because of what? I don't see any evidence of it. So I can't say.
Bove or Flynn?
Well, it sounds like you're trying to
both. I'm
put
saying
this on everybody, right? Like that.
No. I'm saying what it appears to me is that former prosecutors from the Southern District of New York, namely Emil Bove, who is one. We know the Southern District of New York is thoroughly corrupt. So the notion that a corrupt prosecutor from the Southern District of New York would exist is not that unusual. And what I'm saying is, I've been subjected to lawfare for 8 years, and I know that one of the primary tenets of it is to block you from being able to get competent representation and limit the lawyers that you even have a choice of, and then for them to try to control your attorney. So when I see a situation that professional attorneys say, hey, this doesn't make sense, why is this happening, why is that happening, I don't assume that people with 20 years of experience are so incompetent that they make the most basic mistakes. I look at this guy's background and I say, Trump has only known this guy for 2 or 3 years. He got a good result from the case he was working with. So it's not like this guy's been his lawyer for 30 years. Look at Trump's history of lawyers. He had Michael Cohen. How did Felix Sater get in there? They're constantly trying to infiltrate these people around Trump. And I mean, this case just doesn't make sense. The other thing that's been entered on the docket is that we've got a letter motion from a Norm Eisen nonprofit entity called like Democracy Defenders or something like that. These guys are just adamant that they've got to unseal these exhibits A through H, because doing so, according to what they're saying, is going to change the calculus of dismissing the case. I don't know what they mean, but it sounds like, I mean, and this is Norm Eisen. This guy, I mean, it's like saying, oh, Jimmy Rodriguez owns the restaurant, but it's probably on the up and up. Norm Eisen is like the kingpin of lawfare.
I know.
What are those exhibits? Sal, do you know what those exhibits
No,
are?
it's sealed. It's sealed.
I could tell you this. This Emil Bove character, look, he was a member of the SDNY from 2013 to 2021. For people that are screaming about conspiracy theories and Epstein and Comey's daughter that had that case in 2016, he was there first. He was also being so unethical that he got thrown out of the SDNY for reasons that are not really explained, but his supervisor and his underlings didn't get along with him because he's very unethical with the way he goes about his business. And also, he was the one promising Washington in 2021 he wanted to go after people that were involved in January 6th. He had the JTTF. He was running around doing that kind of stuff. And then a year later, Boris Epstein picks this guy out of a hat to join Trump's defense team. Remember, this guy, Boris Epstein, is the link to all of this stuff. So he gets hired to be Trump's defense in his legal case. Now, if you remember, his original lawyer was Joe Tacopina, who had some of the stuff thrown out of court. But then he left in a grievance of saying we had a difference of opinion. But really, it's because Boris, who runs the legal team, then introduces Todd Blanche and this guy, Emil Bove, who just a year and a half prior was trying to convict and go after people that were on the lawn on January 6th or 500 feet away from the place. So that's already alarming. What the hell Boris Epstein's doing now? Boris Epstein has a history. Number one, he's never tried a case. Number two, the guy has been arrested for stupid things, being drunk or with some woman. You can look all that up. Third, the New York Times even found out that he tried to basically legally extort someone that was trying to get into an interview with Trump to be in his cabinet. And yet that interview goes where? We don't know. We never learn what happened with that. I guess Boris Epstein always survives and he's always hanging around. So these guys are lurking in the background. And what do? Emil Bove became Trump's lawyer. He lost that case, right? They found him guilty no matter what. And they say the case is unwinnable.
You're right. He did lose.
But listen, Joe Tacopina took ASAP Rocky's case in California, a liberal district, definitely no one conservative there, and got an acquittal for someone facing 25 years, I believe, to life for a gun charge, something a lot more serious than whatever they said Trump was doing with. He was overinflating values of Mar-a-Lago and some crazy political witch hunt. So why did Joe Tacopina be forced to leave and they bring in a guy who for sure lost the case for Trump? And now he's doing all this corrupt stuff through the DOJ with this Eric Adams case. And again, I mentioned this will be used in a political manner for the midterms. And you saw it in Congress just last week. AOC who proved that a broken clock is correct twice a day, correctly stated that Eric Adams was given false testimony and very jumpy and antsy, wouldn't answer a simple question. And no, it wasn't attorney-client privilege. And no, he should have answered, well, he should have answered, yes, no, I plead the fifth. She is correct. And that proves my point. This will be used as a political weapon. You could thank Emo Bove, who we understand came to power through. Boris Epstein, is this guy an agent, a double agent? It's Boris. He's also Steve Bannon's boy. Came through Steve Bannon, who has ties to everyone. Artie Idala, Eric Adams, the Republicans are now in bed with Eric Adams. So this whole thing seems to circle around the same people. Oh, and Artie Idala seems to circle around the same people. Not enough people are answering. They don't ask questions. It's just Trump says it's okay. It's okay. No. That's not how this works. I don't even know if he knows it's okay. Does he know what really happened? Who knows?
That's what I'm saying. Does Trump even know, Sal? Does Trump even know, Sal? So bottle this up for us. What do you think? Is it a double cross, or is Emo Bove just doing this because he's incompetent?
It could be a lot of things that the people are not asking the right questions. They're not asking Emo Bove. Go ask Boris Epstein. Go ask Steve Bannon, who went on the New York Young Republicans Gala and was praising Eric Adams. The same night that Artie Idala, who's his lawyer, became Ingrid Lewis Martin's lawyer, and Eric Adams was supposed to show up that night and didn't. He ducked everyone because he knew they were going to ask him about Ingrid Lewis Martin. The thing stinks to high heaven. There's too many coincidences, and listen, you're trained as a cop. If you see the same patterns and the same people in the same circles over and over again, you have something. You have something to work with. And I'm not a part of Justice Department. I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not a federal agent or a cop anymore. But I know what I have or what I could have in front of me and what I would do. That's I don't know what these people are doing or if they're allowed to do it. And Jason, I hate to say this Epps case that you're seeing, the nightclub extortion racket, how does this not lead to Eric Adams? So how do we know that the federal process of this investigation isn't being stalled because there's a order from Emo Bove that says you can't touch the prince, Eric Adams, who apparently can do anything he wants. Yet we have to ask ourselves, Jason, with all this stuff, is Eric Adams a foreign asset or a government asset? Because he seems to be immune from anything. And we don't know why, because the guy is a complete inept and incapable of doing anything. Can't make a correct decision. Everything around him is corrupt. Yet he never gets held accountable. Why?
I don't know. I think it's a conspiracy.
Know,
Sarena disagrees.
I know. That's just my general. I mean, for me, Emil Bove was hired by Trump. Trump wants to control New York. He decided to dismiss the case without prejudice so he could control New York. And Emil Bove didn't think it was going to blow up the way it did. That's just how I see it. But you never know. None of us really know what has been going on behind closed doors. And I think we can all agree on that. I think we can all agree that corruption persists in our government, that we are being blinded by those corrupt people. And we don't get to see what goes on behind the curtains, and that we need to have more transparency with that so that the people like us, regular civilians, could know what our leaders are doing. And we want our leaders to be held accountable, just like the little guy is accountable. And we know for a fact that that is not happening. And I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you know, and this other thing is like, you know, I'm not doing I'm not like speculative and all this crazy stuff. I'm not like these people that are saying Epps is a criminal because she stole overtime, and the facts are the complete opposite. I am telling you, listen, this thing, it stinks. And not even to be conspiratorial. But guess what? Even Steve Bannon was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. He filmed some kind of documentary, went to France, and then what happened there? There's like a 2-minute clip of him talking to him, and we don't see the rest of this film that they did allegedly. It's like 90 minutes long. It's a whole article about it, and it's like disappeared. So Epstein's tied to Bannon, who's tied to Artie Idala, who's representing Ghislaine Maxwell, who has ties back to this Boris. They're all buddies with Boris Epstein and Bannon and Emo Bove. This stinks. That's what I'm telling you. Look at the circle. It's the circle. That's where you get a theory. That's why I had a gun and badge, because I was able to present things and end up going somewhere with it. I'm not saying that somebody is guilty with no facts, saying somebody stole money when they investigated her and said she didn't steal anything. But people still running with that narrative. It's insane. That's the problem with this country. There's a lot of sensationalizing things, and I think a lot of low information people, they love to be lied to, they love to be coddled to, and they're just happy with living in lies. That's why World Wrestling Entertainment is so big, because people want to be entertained. Sometimes the truth is what you say. It's not pretty. It's just like, oh, that's it. And it just, oh, I wasted all this time learning about this and there's nothing. It's like they want to hear he chopped his head off. And while he was doing that, he was eating pizza and turning his knife. That's what they want to hear. When it's just, he shot him and walked away. That's it. That's what the evidence is. But they don't want to hear that. That's a problem.
Now, Sal, wait a minute. How come all the people who are calling for the release of the Epstein files aren't saying, hey, Bannon, why don't you release your Epstein files? He doesn't have any Department of Justice or anything holding him back. He's just got this.
Steve Bannon is tied to all these conservative influencers you're seeing that they post the same thing at the same time, exactly in the same manner. They all came to prominence. I mean, not all, but the majority of them came to prominence through him. Some that you've rubbed elbows with that are prominent right now. They were on his show 24/7. They're underneath the Miles Guo wing, we'll call it. And all of this goes back to him. You can look at it. People just don't want to look at facts or evidence. Brian Kilmeade said it, so it's true. Sean Hannity said it, so it's true. Tucker Carlson said it, so it's true. And I want to explain something else about Tucker. And I was on his show, but notice a pattern that Eric Adams goes on the show. So that kind of spotlighted him. And now Trump, all of a sudden, they moved into what happened with him. You're hearing the rumor of Sam Bankman-Fried. Oh, they got to pardon him. Now he goes on the show. And now you're hearing the rumors of Trump should pardon him. The Tate brothers. You heard all the things about them. I think Tucker or whatever lined them up for an interview or something. Now you're hearing the rumors about that. So you see how this whole game is played. Don't fall for this game. Look, I voted for this guy. I still like a lot of his policies. I believe in him. But when there's something that doesn't smell right or doesn't pass the smell test, you got to call it out, because you can't be a sycophant. I'm not a sycophant for anyone. I'm for you and me, the American people, for the better and the best of the citizens and the taxpayers. If you're not loyal to that, then what are you loyal to? You just want to be part of a power structure? Because they'll use you up and you'll be again, you can't spit on a sidewalk. You'll be thrown in jail and face 100 years. But Eric Adams, he could steal, bribe, do whatever, and nothing will ever happen to him. There is a separation of people, no matter who's your president, who's your governor, who's your mayor, and you demand better because you control that. You voted for these people. Your tax dollars pays for this. I like what he's doing, Jason. Remember, the best part of this administration is Elon Musk. What he's doing is amazing. Funny, he's not elected and he doesn't technically work for the government. But a lot of other things are very questionable right now, Jason. They're back to the old tricks with Trump, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I just hope he doesn't fall into that same thing that happened in the first time.
I know. I'm with you on that, Sal. And Sarena, if you've got something to add, we can do that. But I want to touch on the Elon Musk piece as well.
Go ahead. No, please continue.
Well, so yeah, Sal is talking about Elon Musk. Obviously, we've seen all of these protests and really terrorist attacks at Tesla dealerships. I had a little conversation with a guy, a really friendly guy driving a Tesla. But what I wanted to discuss with you guys is the other day I went to the Tesla dealership, down in Soho here, just to see what's going on. Now, I want to talk about this guy, Mottola, Sergeant Mottola. He is with the Community Affairs Department or whatever it is. And I had this, where did it go? Here we go. We got Crackhead Barney. So she's sort of part of the crew with people with, what's his name? The Muppet. Let's watch this for a second.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, it's Crackhead fucking Barney.
Once I cross the street, I want you guys to pay particular attention to how far away I'm standing from Sergeant Mottola and how closely he's paying attention to what I say.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. Like, there's always these certain people around.
Sorry, I should have queued this up a little bit more. When am I crossing the street? So So Matola's, he's standing sort of right there in the doorway. She's making a ton of noise, which I've seen the cops exercise a lot of discretion as far as giving out disorderly conduct tickets. But here, let's take a look.
She's a lunatic. Why is she allowed to behave like a lunatic? What? See, these fucking idiots are always hanging out where crackhead Barney is. This guy right here is crackhead Barney's boss. This is why this woman is allowed to be here acting like an idiot.
He's a big fan! My biggest
right
fan! You here, you want this shit in your mouth?
She's assaulting me with a stick.
Pretty interesting that he came right over, right? I mean, this conversation goes on for a little while, but this person, Uniska Wahala Kano, also known as Crackhead Barney, she's standing there waving drumsticks in my face. She's advancing toward me. I'm telling her to get away from me, to back up. I'm telling this guy that she's pursued me around the city and has sexually assaulted me. He's laughing in my face while I try to report a crime to him. I'm telling him that she inserted this turkey baster in her vagina and stuck it in my face. And he's asking if I was injured. He's laughing at me.
So, tell me what happened.
Why is she allowed to act like a maniac? These fucking guys
is
are
there a
always...
legal requirement that you be injured in order for something to be sexual assault? The reason why I wanted to show this to you is, notice what she's wearing. Look at this color. It seems to match the color, this almost iridescent royal blue that's worn by the community affairs people. We know that undercover police officers use an undercover color of the day. It just seems logical to me that you might not want to compromise real officers working undercover by telling an idiot like this woman what the actual undercover color of the day is. And I just wonder what is going on, because it seems like the police are controlling these protests. I think I had shown you guys in the past an image of a guy who was arrested and was in Rikers Island who looked exactly like an alleged, this was a Venezuelan gang member who happened to look exactly like a guy who attacked me at a Palestinian protest. Now, here's the guy who was recording Crackhead Barney's antics at the Tesla dealership. Looks a lot to me like Ben Weiss, who's a journalist for Fortune, who writes favorable articles about Crackhead Barney. It's interesting that she always seems to be wherever the police are, and no matter what she does to me, she doesn't get arrested, she doesn't get detained. And then I also noticed that yesterday, when they had a protest up at City Hall, our buddy Sergeant Matola was there again. I mean, maybe he's super busy, but we had a lot of reporting that said that this was happening at Gracie Mansion. We can see it doesn't seem to be. It looks like the protest was at City Hall. And here's Matola again. Maybe a coincidence, but we've got 35,000 police officers. I always seem to see these same guys. What do you guys think about that?
I could say this with community affairs. He's probably a sergeant in the community affairs unit in One Police Plaza. So they'll send that very unit to cover whatever it is that's going on as the liaison to the community, because he's part of community affairs. As far as the color of the day, I don't know what it was, as I'm not in the NYPD anymore. But what they usually would do, I could say that if they don't wear a hat or a shirt, but that's undercover officers. She's a crazy civilian. I don't even know why. I mean, if she struck you with one of those drumsticks, he should have done something, but the inaction speaks for itself. They think she's crazy, and they're going to let her get away with everything short of something that's really out of hand, because they see her all the time, and instead of putting her in a mental ward and a mental facility, they just let her go out there and hope that, maybe she hurt somebody that they don't like. I mean, I don't know. I can't describe what happened there, but I did find a prior incident that you did where our infamous nemesis, Oren Levy, was there, and he had a blue, I don't know if it was tied around his knee. That is something that, yes, the NYPD undercovers would wear something like that. That's the color of the day. I don't know what he's doing wearing it. I don't know if he's a fanboy for the police department, but I would again, I'm hearing that he gets paid for being a media type personnel, for a personal, like a public information personnel for the Eric Adams administration and the New York City Police Department. So, in that retrospect, with that guy, expect the unexpected with him. With crackhead Barney, I mean, I don't know if she's an associate of anyone there, or I think she's just a lunatic because I think she's been arrested before. I mean, she jumped on the stage a couple of days ago and did something crazy. Why wasn't she arrested then?
I always see her with Levi. I've seen her many times before with Oren Levi.
So then she might be somebody that's associated with him and does whatever it is with him or part of some operation. He happened not to be there that day with them. So that's another thing. He's now moved on to big things like chasing around people at the Roosevelt Hotel and claiming, he just chases after anyone who's Hispanic and says they trend their agua, allegedly. So, I mean, he's moved on to bigger and better things. But that woman, I don't know why she's not locked up in a mental ward. And her hanging around Oren Levy is a scary thought in itself.
Yeah, I mean, they use these people, as you said, to antagonize people that they don't like. You just saw that 300-pound guy advancing toward me as I'm raising my hand and backing up. Clearly, I'm in a defensive posture. And see, the thing that is a little bit of a disconnect is that in New York, we've got a criminal statute for assault that differs from the things that are considered assault in a civil tort. This guy merely advancing toward me and putting me in imminent fear of bodily harm constitutes a civil tort of assault, or I don't mean to put you on the spot again, Sarena, but this is my understanding. I'm not an attorney. And that's what these guys do. The cops will not arrest them for doing that, but what they want is for me to take a swing or whatever, and then they can come in and arrest me. All the people that collect in this collect pond park are always controlled by the police. They frequently have done things that cause me to say, hey, arrest this guy, and then they won't. This is an image that I got from the archives of the NYPD. They're talking about the street crime unit. And you can see they have this cartoon picture of an old lady. The documentation for this thing, the police tell you that they hire civilians and actors and people to dress up in costume. Kind of exactly the same thing that crackhead Barney, Unisco, Walhalla, Kano is doing there. I'm looking for that color of the day, or maybe, you know what, if we look for it like this, color of the day.
I mean, you might be onto something. I don't have any documents or proof of someone that would come forward and say, Oren Levy's our guy, or this.
Right. Here he is doing what you're talking about. So here he's got this very distinctive, and then this guy is wearing a royal blue Mets shirt. Maybe he's part of it too. It's this color really starts to jump out of the crowd, and you could see how if you tell all of your uniformed officers, okay, today we have a couple of civilian idiots, their color of the day is this royal blue. The color of the day for actual police officers who we don't want idiots like Oren Levi and crackhead Barney knowing who our undercover officers are because they've been cultivating their undercover status and they could be killed if people find out. We'll give these idiots blue and the real undercovers have a different undercover color of the day. I'm speculating, but this is just, guys, as you said, Sal, you see patterns. I've been at this for 8 years. I know these idiots.
Listen. What you're saying is no secret. I've had other people tell me, I see Oren Levy always around police officers. The guy has 2 lawsuits against the NYPD. People have told me that he was selling cannabis and stuff out in the open right in front of people. I mean, he was marching with Antifa, marching with Black Lives Matter. Then he became friends with the Freedom Movement. He was an anti-Trump guy, an anti-Eric Adams guy. Now he loves Eric Adams. He's pro-NYPD and can't stop posting about Donald Trump. Look. If the guy ain't insane, which he might be, I don't know, but it begs to they have a lot of questions there. And he's constantly posting about positive things for people that everyone can't stand. Eric Adams has a 20% approval rating. John Schell and Kaz Dordry, people want him out. They hate those 2 guys. He's done everything to defend them online and uses 140,000 followers, whatever he has, this inflated following he has, to push them. And in fact, they have reposted him. John Schell reposted him not only on the Chief of Department account, but on John Schell's personal account. So you might have something there. I mean, the guy sat in the press room with Eric Adams covering his press conferences. But if you try to go there, Jason,
No, they
won't
throw me
align
out.
with the rules.
No way. Absolutely.
So how does
Absolutely.
he get in, but you don't?
Yeah.
So there you
And-
go. That gives you a lot of ammo to fire and say, what's going on here? What's
And
really
I ask
going on?
both
What's
of you
really
this. I ask both of you this because you know what? When you're in the police, I've never been in a situation like that. That's a life or death job. I've never been in that. But when someone in your ranks does something truly inexplicable that doesn't make sense, don't you begin to wonder, is this person doing something crooked? Is this a double cross? Don't you have to?
Serena, you actually went after those kind of people. So
Tell us.
You
Tell
had
us.
You had no choice.
When I went after them, the evidence was clear. I didn't have to speculate at all. I'll put it that way. But as you also know, I have to jump at this time, and I apologize for that.
No, don't apologize. We appreciate your
really
time.
thank you so much for having me on the show. I really do. I hope I can come back soon, and I apologize. I just have to jump because I have prior things.
We understand, Serena. Please do not apologize. We appreciate your time tremendously. We appreciate your input. Sal, thank you for joining me. I want to make sure everybody follows the finest Unfiltered podcast, The Sal Greco Show. Don't forget to visit salgreco.com. Support Sal. If you need an attorney, call Serena at Townsend Law. And thanks to both of you guys for joining me. People can sponsor Crowdsource the Truth by going to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or subscribestar.com, or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.